Hello and welcome to In Pursuit of Clarity, episode 19, entitled Escalation. So it's obvious things are happening at a quickened pace, and I'd argue this pace is increasing exponentially, and wanted to say a few things on the topic. What's happening right now is significant. For example, regarding the collapse of traditional media, the increased exposure of social media, trying desperately to play whack-a-mole to censor opposing opinions, and so much of the public waking to various control mechanisms. I've used the analogy in the past of polar opposite stories being told, with a portion of the population huddled around the feet of one storyteller, and others huddled around the feet of another. I believe these stories being told not only shape our impression of reality, molding our worldview, but they also help determine our understanding of language. And very broadly speaking, they themselves are a language of sorts. The longer we listen to one of these two opposite stories, the more we imbibe the framework and premises of the storytellers, and the less we're able to resonate with or even understand the other side. And I mean this in a very literal sense. We're no longer able to meaningfully understand the how or why behind the thoughts of those who've taken in enough of that story which contradicts our own. I'd like to make it clear that by saying this, I certainly don't mean to insinuate that both of these stories are of roughly equal value, or objectivity, or accuracy, in some relativistic sense. Far from it. I happen to believe one storyteller has been subverted and co-opted to the core, and in exchange for personal gain and similar superficial motives, now mindlessly and happily reads from the script placed into his hand by utterly shameless, dishonest actors, regardless of the end result cost to the world. But this is almost a moot point with regards to the larger point being made here. And the larger point could best be summarized like this. Barring some miracle, our nation and world at large is on a collision course, the likes of which the modern world hasn't seen before. And one I believe we lack the reference points to even imagine, as there's no direct historical analog. It's my belief that decades of psychological research, much of it taking place out of the public view, or at least outside the bounds of public discussion, has been harnessed to create a weaponized press and pop culture, capable of almost effortlessly herding masses of people to and fro, into embracing or rejecting sets of ideas and worldviews, without their recognizing that this manipulation has even occurred. Most of us do things for reward or validation. So what happens if a culture becomes so dominated and controlled by individuals pushing a singular worldview that only one side of the ideological spectrum receives these rewards and validation? The result is inevitable. All of those who prize either personal gain or reputation above the truth, or all those on autopilot to the extent that they don't really care to understand their world, will naturally fall towards this gravitational center. A frictionless, easy drift. The closer they approach, the more they see the need to embrace and defend the points of view they've unthinkingly taken on, as ego comes into play, which then causes creative self-justification of their new stances, both to themselves and others. And this is made easier by several talking points programmed and drilled into their heads, some of which they may not fully understand, or even entirely agree with, but all of which are powerfully manipulative enough to act as ammunition in an argument, and thus provide something to fall back on at the slightest difficulty. The NPC meme was so disturbing to this element of the population because it hit so close to home, and it so cleanly uncovered and exposed a new manner of thinking and being in our modern technology-driven world, namely the programmable human being, able and willing to believe almost anything, as long as it's the comfortable and safe position, socially and professionally advantageous, and sold to them by well-dressed people in serious and formal tones, surrounded by fancy graphics or a professional-looking studio. And I do mean almost anything. Tens of millions of Americans now embrace the destruction of their nation, culture, traditions, and ensure their children will grow up in a world vastly inferior to the one they inhabited in exchange for this cowardice, and a self-perception of themselves composed of buzzwords such as forward-thinking, progressive, modern. Prior to the age of programmable humanity, it had been easy for us to pull back far enough to realize that things are getting fundamentally worse. That American streets weren't always strewn with homeless, with feces and urine and needles. That there was a time in which most Americans left their doors unlocked without a worry, and let their children play outside all day without a second thought. These recognitions come naturally to a people not constantly bombarded with deceptive minutiae cleverly crafted to keep them from seeing the big picture, to keep them enthusiastic about this brand new morality they've adopted, painting it in the most attractive colors. This isn't the case anymore. We're programmed so deeply and so profoundly, and at levels and in ways in which we don't fully understand, that most have completely lost the ability to see the larger picture, to use simple yet powerful deductive reasoning and exercise clear judgment. Those most firmly locked in this Twilight Zone feedback loop, those most committed to the new religion created by those reductionist materialists who push a nihilistic consumerism, are very much like the Walking Dead. The religion they've chosen not only saps their energy and will, but it creates immense confusion and chaos in its wake. That type of confusion and chaos now felt and lived by millions. The clarity and order and firm footing we once had has been completely stripped. And what's even more impressive about these devious shepherds is that they've managed to paint the world as pointless, cruel, and without purpose, and then harness the anger and despair felt as a result of this towards further attacks on all order and structure, and those who seek to maintain some semblance of civilization, creating the most dangerous feedback loop ever created, and an increasingly lost and angry mob eager to destroy. The moneyed powers that long ago came to dominate finance, and from here made the short and easy leap into buying up media and all major organs of influence, had a chance to take their foot off the gas. Faith in the media is at an all-time low, our purchased politicians are no longer trusted, NGOs have been exposed for what they are, and our corporate structure on the whole has been shown to be sickly and diseased. Considering all of this, cooler heads might have prevailed, and chosen to moderate their approach. But of course, this isn't in their nature. It's no exaggeration to say that this element epitomizes insatiable and shameless greed, and there is no off switch. They've pushed the pedal to the floor, and I genuinely believe they're willing to start a war or spark a civil war to retain power and avoid justice being served. Considering that these forces still have a significant percentage of the population under their sway, and that as we speak, they're actively and aggressively using several methods to further program this population, barring a miracle, this practically guarantees an explosion in the relatively near future. The only direct means of diffusing this ticking time bomb would be to destroy the programming signal, but I'm not sure many people realize just how deep the rabbit hole goes in this regard. It's now all-pervasive. Those allowed to ascend in academia, in TV and movie production, in magazine and newspaper publication, in short, in every single sphere of influence, are those who've signaled their willingness to play ball. Several years ago, this might have been seen as a fringe conspiracy theory. But today, I think that even the average person plucked off the street might agree that an openly right-wing individual would have zero chance of real success in these professions. The door is blocked. What this means is the informative and shaping signals and sensory inputs we take in from all of these sources are almost universally pushing us in a single direction. And this pushing isn't transparently obvious. Even though we do recognize quite a bit of it at this point, much of it is shrewdly subtle, planting seeds in the recesses of our subconscious, slowly prodding us in directions we'd never otherwise take, causing us to embrace opinions we'd have considered absurd or obviously unhealthy just a few short years ago. It can be exasperating, draining, depressing, infuriating, but don't let it if you can avoid it. Something helpful to remember is that as these two sides diverge faster and further, we have a tendency to look at the other side as our metric for the health of the world, and avoid looking at the positive movement within our own ranks. I don't think anyone would doubt that people are now waking at a faster clip than ever before. Avoid the impulse to focus on the ugliness of the other side, and take a moment to notice the increasing health and the heightened awareness of our own. And take note of the fact that those who learn such truths can never again drift back to the other side of the fence. There's no unlearning that which has been recognized and unveiled. There's simply no chance of good people indefinitely tolerating such degeneracy and degradation on all fronts, especially when moves are made to restrict rights and freedoms, or to disarm or further control. Keep in mind every major effort recently in which crying children have been awkwardly pushed in front of cameras and major news networks to demand we give up our Second Amendment rights has hardly served to do anything except increase NRA membership and open skepticism of what's really going on. So, take steps to prepare for messy situations, but keep your head about you, and try to keep it tilted upward. When we focus on ugliness, we allow this disease into our lives, and it is contagious. If we seek to dwell on and spread the health within us, we'll all be the better for it. Thanks for listening.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my own.